High on the cliffs of Mali, carved into the living rock, lie thousands of hidden caves. From a distance, they look like shadows in the stone. But inside, they hold a secret of survival, sacrifice, and silence. For centuries, these caves have watched over the Dogon people. They were not tombs built for kings. They were not temples raised for gods. They were something far more desperate. Sanctuaries of the enslaved, prisons of the hunted, and sometimes, graves for the forgotten. What drove an entire people to vanish into stone? Who were they hiding from? And what terrible choice did they face? Life in darkness or death in silence? In this documentary, we'll uncover the hidden history of the Dogon caves, where families once buried their dead, concealed their children, and resisted one of humanity's darkest trades. Stay with us, because what you'll discover here will change how you see Africa's story forever. And before we descend deeper into this journey, take a moment to pause, subscribe to Cuffed and Curious, and share this story. Together, we'll bring hidden truths back into the light. These caves have kept their secrets for centuries. But today, we'll step inside them together. We'll walk where families once hid, hear the echoes of children's cries, and uncover what history tried to bury. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be told, stories of courage, of hidden pain, of survival against impossible odds, then pause right now. Hit subscribe to join us here at Cuffed and Curious. Like and share this video so more people can uncover the truths the world forgot. Because the deeper we go into these caves, the darker the story becomes. And trust me, you won't want to miss what's waiting in the shadows. The Dogon caves are more than ancient shelters carved into stone. They are silent witnesses to a time of terror. For centuries, slave raiders swept through West Africa, taking men, women, and children, tearing apart villages, and leaving silence in their wake. The Dogon people faced a terrible choice: remain in the open and risk capture, or vanish into the rocks, sealing themselves away from the world. But these caves weren't just hiding places. Some were sanctuaries of survival. Others became tombs. And inside them, archaeologists have found chilling traces: bones, burial chambers, offerings, remnants of lives lived and lost in darkness. So here lies the central question of our journey. Why did the Dogon carve these hidden caves? Were they desperate fortresses against slavery? Were they secret burial grounds to honor the lost? Or do they conceal an even deeper truth about resistance and survival in the heart of Africa? In this story, we'll follow the trail of the Dogon, from their culture and beliefs, to the rise of raiders, to the haunting legacy left within these caves. Each step will bring us closer to the moment when survival itself hung on a single decision: to hide, or to be taken.
Act 1. Setting the stage, Dogon land, culture, geography. Rising out of the dusty plains of Mali, the Bandiagara cliffs stretch for nearly 150 kilometers. These rocks have stood for millennia, but within their shadows lie stories that time itself tried to bury. The Dogon people settled here more than 600 years ago. Farmers, astronomers, and artisans, they built a life balance between earth and sky. Their culture is steeped in myth, from masked dances that honor the spirits, to sacred knowledge of the stars that astonish the outside world. For the Dogon, these cliffs were more than shelter. They were sacred, a natural fortress, a link between the living and their ancestors. But the peace of this land would not last. Act 2. Arrival of slave raiders and rising threat. In the 15th century, a storm began sweeping across West Africa. Slave raiders, armed, mounted, merciless, struck village after village. Men were chained. Women and children were torn away. Whole communities vanished overnight. The Dogon, isolated but not unreachable, became targets. Fields outside the cliffs were exposed. Farms were raided. Families lived in constant fear of the next attack. They faced a choice: fight an enemy they could not match, or disappear into the rocks that had always protected them. Act 3. The caves of secret sanctuaries. The Dogon turned to the cliffs. Hidden caves, some carved by their ancestors, others expanded in desperation, became sanctuaries. Entire families vanished into the stone. These chambers were stocked with food and water. Entrances disguised with branches, rocks, or earth. Inside, silence was survival. But the caves were both refuge and prison. To remain hidden meant hunger, fear, and sometimes death in the shadows. Act 4. Survival stories and shocking discoveries. Some chose to seal the caves from within. Better to die together in darkness than be dragged into chains. Others survived, emerging weeks later, gaunt, shaken, but free. Stories passed down for generations tell of children saved, villages rebuilt, but also of betrayal, of caves discovered, and families lost. Survival was never certain. For many, the caves became tombs long before history remembered them. Act 5. Archaeological findings and hidden burials. Centuries later, archaeologists entered these same caves. What they found was chilling. Human remains resting in alcoves, ritual offerings, masks, anklets, the echoes of lives lived and lost in hiding. Some chambers were burial sites, sacred places of the Dogon's ancestors. Others were silent witnesses to the horrors of slavery, families who entered to hide and never emerged. Act 6. Legacy and modern remembrance. Today, the Dogon still live in the shadow of these cliffs. Their masked dances honor the spirits, their rituals preserve memory, their stories keep the caves alive. These caves are more than rock. They are scars of survival, carved with courage and pain. They remind us that the history of slavery is not just one of chains, but of resistance. By remembering the hidden caves of the Dogon, we honor those who chose freedom in the only way they could, by disappearing into stone. Their silence still speaks, if we are willing to listen. In the height of the raids, some Dogon families faced a choice no one should ever have to make: to be dragged into chains or to vanish into stone forever. They knew the raiders would not stop searching. They knew discovery meant capture, humiliation, and a life of slavery. And so, with shaking hands, they sealed the cave, stone after stone, layer after layer, cutting off the world outside. In that moment, the cave became both sanctuary and tomb. Their last act of resistance was silence. Centuries later, archaeologists found their remains, still resting in those chambers. Families who chose death and freedom over life in chains. Their story was never written, only carved into the stone. The hidden caves of the Dogon remind us that history is not only written in books, sometimes it is carved into stone, whispered through generations, and carried in silence. For too long, the story of Africa and slavery has been told only through chains, ships, and markets. But here, high in the cliffs of Mali, another story emerges, a story of resistance, of families who chose to fight in the only way they could, by refusing to be taken alive. These caves do not just speak of tragedy, they speak of courage. They remind us that survival is not always measured by victory in battle, but sometimes by the quiet strength to endure, to protect, and to resist. When we remember the hidden caves of the Dogon, we reshape how we see the history of slavery in Africa. It is not only a history of loss, but of defiance. Not only chains, but choices. And in their silence, the Dogon left us a message that freedom, even in death, was worth more than a life in bondage. If this story moved you, don't let it stay hidden. Subscribe to Cuffed and Curious, share this video, and help us bring more untold histories back into the light. The caves of the Dogon remind us that the past still whispers if we are willing to listen. And this is only one story among thousands, waiting in silence across Africa and the world. Here at Cuffed and Curious, we bring these hidden histories back into the light. Stories of survival, resistance, and humanity that were almost lost to time. If this story moved you, help us keep uncovering the untold. Subscribe now to Cuffed and Curious. Like and share this video so others can discover the courage carved into stone and the truths history tried to bury. Together, we can keep exploring the hidden stories of our past and make sure they're never forgotten again.